Unlocked for Citizen Mode.
Citizen Rebel defines the ideology of food. This rant just came from a disgruntled aid worker, so I am not really defining anything. I ran into a white paper written by a French aid worker in West Africa. It was written for the World Food Program, WFP, and European Community's Humanitarian Office, ECHO. It was the INGO's report for these two donors. The humanitarian community was obviously having problems again serving unknown food to people interested in eating something new. If you begin to look at different cultures around the world, you will notice the various types of food that are eaten, how food is prepared, the ritual around food, and how the food is eaten, and so forth. Some cultures eat that way only because that it was maybe grown in that area. This was how it was before international trade. Of course, some cultures remain this way despite the possibility of trade. If you think this is merely a function of poverty, then you are mistaken. Regard the Europeans and, specifically, how the French brag that they are the best at making and appreciating food. I prefer the Italian dogma in Europe over the others, but to each his palate. If you look at New Yorkers and San Franciscans, for example, the culture is to eat whatever you like represented by whatever culture. The citizens there are raised to be open-minded and curious with regards to food. It is easy to do so there because of the multitude of cultures represented in a small area. Therefore, their food dogma is one of diversity and not of ethnocentrism or ethno-nationalism or tribe. One argument suggests that the ideology of food has its roots in the scarcity of food, i.e., survival-based. This may be so in certain cases, but does not explain the French food ideology. For instance, another argument posits a link between constructed ethnic identities, local food production, and ethnocentrism. This does explain the behavior of modern, wealthy nations, especially those with a history of ethno-nationalism. Imagine, if you will, the cultures that define themselves in terms of a food dogma. This is not difficult to imagine, is it? How does the ideology of food play out in African humanitarian operations? If the people are malnourished and must intake a minimum amount of calories, then the food is chosen with that in mind along with transportation, storage, and all associated costs. Add a certain prejudice and negative image of poor people in Africa and you combine lackadaisical attitude toward indigenous food preferences. Take the French food dogma and apply it to an African context and you get bags, boxes, and pastes, which are then fed to the hungry. There were many examples in the paper, but the following one was my favorite for obvious reasons you will discern. Bulgur wheat is very expensive and highly regarded in Europe. Liberia was a rice exporting country before their multiple wars. Liberians are rice eaters and riot if the price of rice becomes too high. This is just to give you an idea of how important rice is there. The WFP decided to give bulgur wheat to the Liberians. This helped subsidize the European bulgur wheat market. You know, making profit off of humanitarian assistance. The Liberians and the internally displaced person camps, IDP, would not eat it, did not know what to make with it, and ended up feeding it to their livestock. The local merchant class of Lebanese traded 11 cups of rice against a 50-kilo bag of wheat and then sold it all for an enormous profit in Europe. The Lebanese get richer and the Africans get nutritionally poorer. A great scam for all, but the IDPs, a French humanitarian aid agency, taught the Liberians how to make cookies, cakes, bread, and other items with the wheat in order to get them to consume it. Some women sold the cookies and sparked a micro-enterprise boom. The cookies were cheap since the bulgur wheat was considered for the cows or chickens. Now, the Chinese are moving into Liberia and taking up all the rice fields. The Liberians still cannot feed themselves and are not getting rich producing rice and selling it to China. In any case, the ideology of food is a notion that I did not really consider myself since I will eat anything. Vegetarian dogma is yet another facet of certain cultures and classes. Whatever your religious or food ideology, just enjoy it yourself and don't try to force it upon others. And, certainly, there is no reason to brag that your dogma is superior to others, even if it is true. Trick. P.S. If I missed something with regards to this paper, just comment below.
Goes your cortex.